We've got a juicy one here today, boys. I think Batman is the greatest hero in comic book history. The amount of interpretations. But what if something changed? What if that wasn't the case at all in the comics? Batman's one rule is arguably the most famous moral code in comic book history. I'd say is the most. He doesn't kill. It's the principle that separates him from the criminals he fights and defines who Bruce Wayne is beneath the mask. But what if that rule never existed? What if Batman regularly killed his enemies in the comics? Would Gotham become safer, or would Batman slowly become the very thing he swore to destroy? Yeah, so today we are answering the question, what if Batman did kill in the comics? What if there was no Joker? What if he did kill them? Let's find out. So without further ado, let's get into it. Understand this. We need to understand why he doesn't kill in the first place. Batman's refusal to kill isn't simply a tactical decision, it's the foundation of his identity, it's his moral code, and every vigilante has one, and his is he doesn't kill. Witnessing his parents' murder taught Bruce Wayne that taking a life creates an endless cycle of pain and loss, whether that's for the person and whether that's for the person that it affects. By refusing to execute criminals, he draws a line between justice and vengeance. Removing that rule doesn't just change Batman's methods, it's changed the philosophy that defines his character for decades. But this is where it gets a bit more interesting, because Gotham's criminal underworld is probably the biggest in comics. Biggest! He's got so many rogues galleries, and all of them could be gone if he didn't stick to that rule. If Batman began killing major villains, Gotham's criminal landscape would change almost immediately and effectively for that matter. Figures like the Joker, Two-Face, Black Mask, Victor Zsasz would likely never escape Arkham to terrorize the city again. Crime rates could initially fall as fear of Batman shifts from arrest to execution. However, power vacuums would quickly emerge, allowing new criminals to compete for control of Gotham's underworld, potentially creating new threats that are even more ruthless than ones Batman's ever eliminated. However, in saying that, I would say that his rogues gallery wouldn't increase, I'd say it would just be different. I think because the crime rate is so monumentally high in Gotham, that I do not think it would make much of a difference, it would just change. However, at one point, if he kept on doing that, he would chip out his own humanity rather than anything else. I thought the best way to go around it is, yes, you lock them up in Arkham. If they don't do that and they do escape Arkham and kill more people, kill them. It's kind of the best workaround for this, to keep that humanitarian version of Batman and that vigilante, so he can still work with the GCPD and not be considered a killer. And also, Batman's line in obviously the new Robert Pattinson thing is, I am vengeance. It's basically justice and vengeance are two opposite things, so maybe pick one. This would take a toll, however, on Batman's relationships. Batman's closest allies follow him because they believe in his moral code and as much as his mission. Like Alfred, as I said, GCPD Commissioner Gordon, Nightwing, Batgirl, obviously daughter of Commissioner Gordon. Many of the members of the Bat family would likely struggle to support a Batman who kills. He would be lonely, he would have no one to turn to, and some might abandon him altogether, believing that he has crossed of the very line that they trusted him never to cross. Now, instead of inspiring heroes, Batman could actually become increasingly more isolated, as I just said, losing the people who help him keep his humanity intact. However, I do think that would be a very good story arc. What I would say is keep the Red Hood stuff in. Red Hood dies, he loses his humanity, and there goes. That's a comic book I would read, because it's very different. Now, the Justice League is something I thought I'd throw in here, but if we're talking Gotham and Batman, I don't really think the Justice League matters, but for the sake of the argument, Batman's no-kill rule is obviously one of the reasons heroes like Superman and Wonder Woman and Flash trust him, despite his darker methods. But if Batman became an executioner, that trust would probably severely get damaged. Some League members might attempt to stop him, completely, fearing that someone with a Batman's intelligence, resources, and willingness to kill could become one of the world's greatest threats. Now, rather than serving as the League's strategist, Batman could find himself viewed as the dangerous vigilante that the Justice League go against, operating outside of every hero's moral code. Which would still be interesting, to be honest. I think the $1 million question is, would Gotham actually be safer? At first glance, permanently eliminating Gotham's deadliest villains seemed like an obvious improvement, but if you actually think about it, like I'm doing, fewer escapes from Arkham would mean fewer innocent lives are lost. However, Batman's willingness to kill could also escalate violence through the city even more. Criminals may stop surrendering, police could lose public trust, and the villains would respond with even greater brutality, believing that they have nothing left to lose. Now, fear may reduce crime in the short term, but it could also create a far more violent Gotham in the long run. Now, the biggest, I think that the biggest factor in all this that it all plays is the psychological cost. Because Bruce Wayne's greatest battle has always been against himself. He is always fighting with that little devil on his shoulder. And that's why his refusal to kill prevents his grief and anger from consuming him completely. Once that line is crossed, each future decision becomes easier to justify. Instead of remaining a symbol of justice, Batman risks becoming driven by revenge, allowing trauma to dictate his actions rather than his principles. But the greater casualty wouldn't necessarily be Gotham, it would be Bruce Wayne himself. So you're basically fighting with two personalities. You fight with Batman and Bruce Wayne. You wouldn't be able to live with one without the other, and therefore that whole humanity and mentality would crumble completely. How would the big question, I know I said that a lot, is how would this change DC history? Batman's moral code has obviously influenced countless stories across DC Comics. Major events involving Joker, Red Hood, and Bat Family, as I said earlier, and even crossovers maybe with the Justice League would unfold very differently if Batman routinely killed his enemies. Entire character arcs probably would disappear by this, new villains probably would rise faster, and Batman's reputation among heroes and civilians alike would probably fundamentally change as well. But rather than representing hopes from discipline, he would become another feared force operating in the shadows. He'd basically be Ra's al Ghul minus the League of Assassins. Okay, that might be a bit of a stretch, but you get my point. I think Gotham might lose some of the most dangerous criminals, yes, but Batman would also lose the principle that makes him so unique. His greatest strength has never been his gadgets or fighting skills, it's his ability to stand at the edge of darkness without actually falling into it. Yes, there are some storylines where he does, but still the one rule that makes him Batman is that he does not kill. Remove that one rule, and you may not ever have Batman anymore. You'd simply have another man seeking justice through fear and death. But yes, let me know what you think of this in the comments below. But without further ado, folks, that is the end of today's video. I do hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe and comment what else you would like to see on the channel. But I hope you have an amazing day as always, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye. Yeah.